Last time we talked about the first game in the survival trilogy and how it was a great start to the trilogy. This time we'll see how well the second game held up. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a great sequel that improves on everything that the first game did and makes it better. Especially seeing that Crystal Dynamics could use the new hardware of the time, of that being the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they could focus on making the game for those systems and not having to focus on making the game for the PS3 and the Xbox 360 like the way they did with the first game. But let's talk about Rise of the Tomb Raider and like what makes this game actually good and what makes it actually bad, because we're going to talk about everything in this game, from the things that I like a lot to the things that they improve to the things I don't like, and then we're just talking about the story in general, because this game does have a pretty interesting story. Rise of the Tomb Raider makes a lot of improvements on the things that the first game introduced, along with adding new quality of life things to the series. Now the first thing I am going to talk about is of course the improvements, because we have to talk about all the things that they improved in this game. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the movement and the travel that you have in this game. It is very improved, because one of the first things you notice is you get two climbing axes, where in the first game you just had one, so you can already tell that the climbing is going to be better than what was in the first game, because now you have two of them. And there's a lot more travel when it comes to using the bow. One of the things I do introduce in this game is that you shoot an arrow at this thing that's in the sky and then you basically swing across. You have that. One of the other cool things they added in this game, when it comes to your climbing axe, you can also throw that in the air and you also can swing across to where you need to go. So you know in the game when like you're jumping off a cliff and you're going to the next thing, that way you can hook it with your like climbing axes, where in this game you could basically throw your climbing axe in the air, so like it stops from you basically like ever falling. All you have to do now is essentially just press the button that it will just throw the climbing axe and it will latch on to like the ledge, and like that makes climbing so much easier. You do get that I think like halfway through the game, but like it's something that makes climbing way better, and like it's something that's an improvement compared to like the last game, where the last game you didn't have nothing like that. One of the other things they do have is that you can shoot arrows like into certain wood, and then you can climb on those and like go to the next area, and that's another thing that's an improvement, because they just gave you a new way that you also could climb. So I like that a lot. And one of the last things that's kind of added to the travel is swimming. You do have swimming in this game compared to the first game where you did not have swimming. This one you have swimming, so you should already know if you played any Tomb Raider game, and you know when it comes to swimming you always got to hurry up and get to a certain area because you know you're going to run out of breath. But in this game, at a certain point you do get introduced to a new item, and it's a rebreather, and essentially it makes it that you can breathe underwater, because like you have a thing that's over your mouth that's giving you air. And of course by having that, it allows you to breathe underwater, so that way you don't got to worry about a time limit and you don't got to die, and because that can be very annoying, just dying from like being underwater too long. And there are certain areas where you kind of have to be underwater for a long time, and that's one of the things they improved in this game, was just the travel. They made it funner and it made it better, and especially like for the set pieces, because this game has a lot of big set pieces, and the set pieces are way better than the first game, especially because early on in this game we're in the ice, and there's like a big set piece that does happen like in the snowy area, and it's really dope. So that's one of the things they do improve, is just like when it comes to the set pieces, they're bigger and better. And of course with having all these new ways you can travel across the land, so yeah, of course the set pieces are going to be improved, because you have all these new ways that of course you got to get out of these set pieces, especially like as you have all the things like being destroyed behind you. So of course the set pieces are going to be bigger and better with all the new improvements they've made. So one of the other little things I guess I will mention real quick is that you can break walls, because in the first game I don't think you were really breaking walls like that, where this one has like a focus on there's a lot of different areas where you have to break walls, and like there's also like different doors you have to open up, because I'm pretty sure in the first game there were like some doors you could open up and other things. I just remember like the silver crates being the main thing you open up in that game. But yeah, you can break walls now. I guess that's a little something. But one of the big things they improve on are skill points. Skill points are so much easier to get in this game compared to the first game, because the problem I had with the first game is that it seemed like it took forever to get skill points, and the only way you would really always automatically get a skill point is if you went into a challenge tomb, where in this game it's not like that at all. All you got to do is just play the game and you'll get a lot of skill points, either killing enemies, finding treasures, or just exploring and unlocking areas. You're gonna get a lot of skill points compared to the first game, where the first game was just seemed like it was just hella stingy, where this one it's not stingy at all, and you'll get them so easy in this game, and that's one of the things I loved. And along with skill points, I guess I should say this, the skill tree is better. It's so much better compared to the first game. There's a lot of different skills that are way more useful than you had like in the first game. The first game had like an okay set of like skills, where this one has a lot of skills that really help you out and they improve so much. That's one of the things I love, is just like new skills that you can learn. The skills are so much better. Yes, you have some skills that are returning, but you also have some skills that are vastly improved, or like new skills that actually add a lot to the game. One of the other things I should mention, since it is connected to the skills, are the challenge tombs. The challenge tombs actually are worth doing in this game. game, because in the last game, the only reason why you really needed to do a challenge tomb was just to get skill points, where in this one, it actually is worth doing because you actually get exclusive skill. One of the skills you can unlock by completing the challenge tomb is that it allows you to climb faster when you're climbing with your climbing axes, so it allows you to climb faster, and that one's a really good one because like the climbing in this is already slow, but like it does make it faster when you get that skill. So that's one of the reasons why you do the challenge tombs now, is because you get these exclusive skills that are actually very useful. But when it comes to the actual challenge tombs in this game, they are more difficult than the first game, because the first game's tombs were not really that difficult. Like they were pretty easy and self-explanatory, where in the ones in this one, they added a little bit more difficulty to them. Yes, they're not like the hardest thing ever. There are some, I will say, that are a little bit harder than the other ones, but for the most part, they're not super hard, but they are an improvement from the last game, because the last game's ones were just very easy, where this one, there's at least a little bit of challenge, and you're just gonna have to think a little bit compared to the last game, where I think the last game only had like one or two that you really had to think about, where in this one, almost every single one you kind of do need to think about a little bit more compared to the first game, and that's a plus, because I felt like the challenge tombs in the first game were very lacking, but in this one, they're actually not lacking, and they're worth doing since you actually do get exclusive skills. One of the other things that got improved in this game is the weapons and the weapon variety, and especially when it comes to the weapon upgrades, you can upgrade a lot of different weapons now, and you get like so many different choices of all these different weapons you can find throughout the game, because you get a lot of different weapons. And one of the upgrades I really like is when it comes to the climbing axe, you can actually upgrade it, because now it's used as a melee weapon, because you know in the first game you really couldn't use like a melee weapon like that, but in this one you actually can use it, and it also is kind of used in stealth too. So there are new things that are kind of added, and like it all goes just like around the bow and arrow, because one of the things the bow and arrow gets now is like an explosive arrow, and that's just something new they added for that. But at the same time, you still have like the grenade launcher that can be connected to like the machine guns, and I mean there's that too. So I mean, and plus when it comes to that, you can kind of get that early, because we'll talk about that in a little bit, is something they added in this game that kind of allows you to get some of these missing parts that like you had in the first game. Now, one of the other things this game, it seemed like it did focus and it wanted to improve on, is stealth, because you know in the first game you really did not have stealth like that, besides certain areas where you kind of could stealth people, because you had the bow and arrow, and then you know you could add the silencer to the pistol, where in this game it focuses a lot on stealth, and the stealth is really good because there's so many different things you can do. There's a lot of different trees you can climb, and you can take out enemies. They give you a lot of things that you can distract enemies with, and also you can craft a lot of different things, like you can craft molotovs, you can craft like these kind of like nail type of bombs, smoke bombs. So there's a lot of different things you can craft that can help you with your stealth, and that's one of the things that is improved. Now, it's not the best stealth, and I will say when we get to the next game, that game actually did 100% focus on stealth, but the stealth in this is vastly improved from the first game, because the first game really didn't have stealth, where this one, it does make a focus on stealth, and there's a lot of different areas that you can go to that you can use this stealth. And also with the stealth being improved, you do have the enemies. The enemies do have better AI. It just depends on what difficulty you play on, because this game does have a lot of different difficulties you can play on, and the higher you get, the enemy AI is going to be better, and you just know it's going to spot, and just know once they spot you, it's going to just turn into guns blazing, and you're just going to be popping them left and right instead of, you know, just stealth. So like when it comes to stealth, you just got to play the game right, that way you're just not in a whole guns blazing situation. But the stealth is very improved in this, and that's what I liked a lot, because there was potential in the first game in some of the areas they had that you could use stealth in, but now you actually can use stealth, and that's a good thing. One of the other things I guess they did add is the full sprint, because now you can sprint like pretty fast in this game compared to the first game. That's something. So I'm just like, yes, we can actually sprint, because the first game you really couldn't sprint like that, where this one you actually can sprint all the way, and it's pretty nice because you can get out the way, especially like if you have enemies coming after you, you can dodge them. Now, one of the other things this game introduces, especially if you have like the 20th anniversary edition, which I'm pretty sure almost every version of this game now is that one, is that you get a whole bunch of different costumes, and I mean a lot. So you can go choose whatever costume you want, and that's a plus. And some costumes actually do have some bonuses to them, so when you're choosing the costume, just like look and see what it says. And like some of the things they can do is like some costumes can help you with health, some can help you like with your different arrows and like different guns. So that's one of the things that's pretty cool about some of the different costumes, where in the first game, you know, you really didn't have that many, where in this game you have a big variety of different costumes you can wear that you want Laura to have on. One of the other things that is added is there's traps in the tombs now, and you have to shoot these traps, because if you don't shoot them, Laura will die. So that's one of the other things that is added, is just traps. So that's one of the cool things they added, just to make like the tombs feel more real, because you know in the first game you really didn't have that much like that, where in this game there are a lot more traps that you can get caught in, but there is a skill that can kind of stop that, because there's a skill where it like slows it down even more. So you have that too. So like it's like you don't really ever have to worry about traps unless you're playing a certain mode that we will talk about later. Now let's talk about some of the things you can do in this game, because this game does give you a lot of things that you can do besides just, you know, doing the main story. One of the first things are side missions. There's a lot of different side missions that you can do in this game, and a lot of the side missions will actually give you items that are very useful that you will be using throughout your journey. There are some side missions where essentially you just have to clear out like a cave and kill a whole bunch of wolves. You have other side missions where you have like drones flying around, you just have to shoot all the drones. So like it's not the craziest side missions, but at least it's something to do, and like most of the time it's pretty easy just to get these done, and like it's not like it's something very tedious. And that's what I like about it, is that they didn't make these too tedious, because they could have easily made some of these side missions very tedious, but at the same time they're really not that bad at all. And that's kind of what I like about the side missions. And of course, when it comes to the side mission, you get items that are very useful, so that's one of the plus sides of doing the side mission. Now there's way more to find in this game, because one of the things they introduce are murals, and like what the murals are essentially are is that you have to go around the map like as you collect different notes or just like audio things, or you find treasures. Like as you try those, your language is going to increase and go up a different level, and that's how you unlock some of these murals, and you're able to understand what these murals are saying, because the majority of these murals are just leading you to like different type of treasure and other things like that. It's something extra that's added in this game that incentivizes you to actually go after all the notes and all the audio that you can find. It's just another thing they added that can give you more experience, along with actually showing like all these items and collectibles you're finding throughout the game actually are leading to something, compared to the first game where they were just things you found that you could just either hear Laura's thoughts on, or just hear the background on, or you could just hear from certain characters, where in this game it actually is leading to something since you unlock these murals. And most of the time when it comes to the murals, they just point you to certain items and treasures, and one of the treasures they do point you towards are the coins that you can find in this game, because that's one thing this game adds, is actually currency. You can find like coins in here, and what you can use those coins are is the shop, because there's a certain shop that you get to and you can take those coins there, and there's a lot of different weapon parts you can buy, or you can buy outfits. There's a lot of things in there, and most of the time those are just useful things that are kind of from the first game. Some of the things are new, and you just go, and that's what you kind of just use the coins for. So like you kind of want to find the coins in all the areas, and also like in the tombs, that way you can save them up and go back to that shop and like unlock some of them things. That way you can have them for your weapons, or you know, you can get like a new outfit. One of the things you have is crafting, because there's actually a crafting system in this game, because you know in the first game you really didn't have no crafting system like that. You had like a few things you could, but not really much, because in this game there's a lot more to it, because there's a lot more items that you can actually collect. And also this game does have health, because you know the first game really didn't have health like that, where in this one you actually have items you can find that you can craft to make health for. So like if you're ever in a sticky situation, you can actually heal up, compared to the first game where you really didn't have that like that. So that's something else that's added. And also like I said earlier, you have throwables that you can craft, so you have those too. So there's a little bit of a crafting system here compared to the first game, especially like when it comes to like the upgrades and all that. A lot of the upgrades like for the guns and the weapons is vastly different than like how it was in the first game, where you know in the first game you would just find like those wooden boxes, and then you would find like the big silver boxes, and that's how you get like a whole bunch of items that you would use to like upgrade your weapons, where in this game you have that still, but like it's different than what it was in that game. Now I want to talk about some of the bad things, or at least some of the things I didn't like that was in this game. So just like the first game, the enemies can still be bullet sponges. I don't care what mode you're on, they are still bullet sponges. I'm not even talking about the enemies that are wearing armor. They can just be bullet sponges at times, and sometimes you just have to get headshots, and that shit can be so annoying. And like the thing was, I was just playing the middle, because I think I was playing on Tomb Raider, because you have 2 above Tomb Raider and like 2 below, because I was just trying to play in the middle, and there's no enemies were still eating up bullets, along with like enemies hitting very hard in this game, because like there's certain areas where you get wave after wave after wave of enemy, and that can be so annoying, because I'm just like, dog, I'm just trying to travel. I'm not trying to fight all these different waves of enemies, but sadly there's way too many waves of enemies in here at certain points. But I mean, I guess it kind of does make sense that they would be bullet sponges, mainly because compared to the first game, this is actually an organization that you're going against when it comes to Trinity, and they're actually military trained, because like, you know, when it comes to the people that are on island, they're kind of just enemies that are stranded on that island, compared to Trinity, who actually have military experience. So it would make sense that they would be hitting hard and like actually attacking you. And also that's mainly because like the AI is a little bit smarter in this game, so it makes sense. But at the same time, the enemies hit way too goddamn hard at times, and also they're bullet sponges still, and that's one of the things that kind of sucks. But at the same time, you still can take enemies out pretty easily. You just got to make sure they're just not all attacking you, and you got to make sure you're dodging, and make sure you're just also like using some of your throwable items. That way you can take out like more of the enemies. And one of the other things I kind of didn't like in this game is like when it comes to the enemies, they can spot you way too easily in this game. Like it seems like they spot you way too much, because like I'll be starting like a run where I want to do some stealth stuff, but then next thing you know, the enemy just spots me. I'm just like, dog, how did he see me? He should not been able to see me. And like that's one of the things that was frustrating, because I felt like most of the time I barely got to do stealth in this game, mainly because the enemy would always spot me, and then next thing you know, I'd get into like a big ass gunfight, and it's just like, dog, I wanted to do some actual stealth, but I wasn't able to. And that's one of the things that does suck about this game, is I feel like there's way too many areas where you get into gunfights instead of actually using stealth. Yes, there are ways you can use stealth, but at the same time, when I was playing, I just kept getting into situations where I had to go out guns blazing instead of actually using stealth. So there is one area in this game where they really want you to use stealth at, but sadly it does not work that well. And that's when you first get like the mouth breather thing that you get. And like when you first get that, you go to this area that has a whole bunch of different holes in it, like in the ice, and you have to take out different members of Trinity. But the thing is like this could have been a really cool thing, but sadly the problem with it is like as soon as you take out 1 or 2 enemies, next thing you know, everybody spots you and it becomes very annoying, and you have to wait underwater for a long time for the enemies not to notice you, and then you go back and you do stealth again, and it could just take a very long time, and it's very tedious. And like the thing is, this could have been improved and been way better, but like the enemies spot you so easily, and it's just like, dog, they should not be able to spot me, because like I'll be hiding under the ice and next thing you know they will see me. I'm just like, dog, how did they see me? So that's one of the areas I felt like they could have done better, but sadly just the stealth was not really that good because they kind of messed it up. I will say, hey, in the third game there's an area that's kind of like that they actually do improve and make better, but sadly in this one it just was not that good of an area to do stealth in. And like even if you would try and go up there to go guns blazing, most of the time you get popped because there'd be way too many goddamn enemies, unless you do hide behind things. And also there are craftable stuff up there that you can throw at people, but you have to make sure you're getting in a certain area that they can't see you though. But it is an area that kind of does suck to me though. One of the other things I did not like about this game is when it comes to the supernatural enemies in this game, we do not see them until basically the end of this game, just like how they were in the first game, because in the first game we did see them at certain points, but you don't fight them until the very end, and that's how it was in this game, and it kind of just mirrors that. I feel like this would have been better if we like kind of fought them in like the middle of the game instead of, you know, like at the end. And it's like as soon as you fight them anyway, you just take them out in a few shots. They're not that strong of enemies compared to like Trinity, where Trinity eats up bullets. These ones you hit them in like 2 or 3 shots and like they're gone, and the next thing you know they disappear, and then they drop a whole bunch of ammo or something for you. It kind of just feels like they didn't utilize them well, since like we don't see them till like the very end of the game. But hey, I will say, hey, in Shadow of the Tomb Raider they actually fixed that too. So hey, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to stop talking about Shadow of the Tomb Raider. That'd be for that video, but I digress though. But yeah, that's one of the things I really didn't like, is that when it comes to the deathless ones, we don't see them basically until the end of the game, and when we actually do fight them, like they're super easy enemies. And like one of the other downsides is like compared to the Oni in the last game, the Oni at least had like one enemy that was clearly the leader, where in this one, so it kind of makes sense why they want to have like some big strong tall enemy that would be the leader, seeing that Jacob actually is the leader of all of them. So it kind of makes sense, but at the same time I feel like they could at least had some better classes when it comes to the warriors, instead of just like the 2 I think we saw, because I think it's just like the sword and the arrow. I think that's all we saw, sadly. And that kind of is basically the same as the Oni in the first game, where they just had people with swords and then, you know, people with bow and arrow. So there kind of wasn't really that much variety, and it kind of just mirrors each other, and they're kind of just essentially the same enemy but just in different armor. Now, one of the last things I will say I kind of don't like, but I mean I don't really like in this whole series, is when it comes to the climbing can still be wonky at certain points, because like you'll be trying to like look in a direction to jump somewhere and Laura ass won't jump. That's one of the things they feel like they never fixed when it came to this whole trilogy, is like when it comes to the jumping can still be very wonky. Yes, you have certain areas where you are still fall and die, and it's just like, dog, why? Because of like the stupid input, because there's certain times like you will press the button but you would go and do it and you still will fall and die, or you won't do it at all. And it's like the thing is, you got to get to a certain area, that way you can jump across where you need to jump, because sometimes like when you're trying to jump, like she'll be looking up instead of looking right or left, and it's just like, Laura, what are you doing? To me, that's one of the things that still has been a problem when it comes to the whole trilogy, just like when it comes to that jumping thing right there. I feel like they never improved that, and it's always been the same. But let's talk about the story of Rise of a Tomb Raider, because it's a pretty interesting story. I like the story, but like, is it the greatest story? No, but like, let's just talk about the story, because it still is a pretty good story to me though. The story starts off with Laura looking through her father's research, and she discovers that he was looking for a thing called the Source, along with him being hunted by a society called Trinity. Laura follows the research that her father discovered, and she ends up in Syria, where she has her first encounter with Trinity, the new antagonist of this trilogy. After discovering where she needs to go next, she goes to Siberia to find the Source. While there, she finds out that Trinity is fighting the Remnant, who are the ones who protect the Source. After meeting Jacob, she finally gets the trust of the Remnant, and she learns about the Source. Eventually, she will fight the ones protecting the Source, called the Deathless Ones, while also fighting Trinity. And at the very end of this story, Laura destroys the Source, mainly because it was the only way to stop Trinity and also stop the Deathless Ones from coming after her. But sadly, once she destroys the Source, Jacob ends up dying, seeing that he was the prophet that even brought this Source, and this was the reason why the Deathless Ones were even around. Now, there's also a post-credit scene that sees a woman named Anna that did have a connection to Laura. She ends up getting shot by one of Trinity's snipers before she could tell Laura what actually happened to Laura's father. And this post-credit scene actually does set up the next new bad that's going to be in the next game. Now, that was a very brief description of what happens in the story, and I mean very brief, because I barely touched on a lot of stuff that happens in this story. Because when it comes to Jacob, he's the prophet, and like he's the one that like made this Source, or just had a connection, whatever it is, to the Source, and like he's the person we've been reading about this whole time when it comes to the prophet, and that's who Laura's been looking for, like when it comes to the source. And also when it comes to that source, it gives you eternal life. And also when it comes to the deathless ones, like they basically all became the deathless ones mainly because you had the Mongols that were attacking them, and that's why they became the deathless ones. And also like Jacob's like over 1,000 years old, so you have him. And also one of the other things I should bring up about Jacob is I think like when it came to like the Trinity organization, they're also the ones that were trying to like take the source or like look over the source like back in the day or something like that too. So that's also like why you had like the battle between them and like why Trinity is trying to find the source now, I guess. And also when it comes to the character Anna, she has a connection to Laura mainly because she was the person that was taking care of Laura like when Laura's father got killed. And also like she was working for Trinity because Trinity kind of wanted her to watch over Laura and also to make sure Laura kind of doesn't follow in her father's footsteps when it comes to looking for the source and other type of things. So that's the main reason why she's there. But like one of the other things to learn about her is that she's essentially dying because she has some type of disease, and that's why she's mainly looking for the source that she can like not die. And also you have her brother Constantine, who's like the leader of Trinity, at least for this section of Trinity. He's one of the leaders, and like he's kind of just serves as like the big bad of this game. And we even have like a final boss fight against him, and like it's not a good final boss fight mainly because at first you got to fight him in a helicopter as you have waves of Trinity enemies, and that's very annoying. And also you have to shoot like these fireballs in the air, that way you could destroy his helicopter. And when we do finally fight him, you have like this thing where you kind of have to use stealth, and like it's just a very boring and annoying like boss fight. Like it's not really that good of a final boss fight. It kind of sucks, especially compared to the first game, where the first game at least had more interesting boss fights, where this one, the final boss fight in this one, is not that good. It kind of sucks to me. I did not like it at all. But also when it comes to like the post-credit scene we get, it really does set up the next game really well, because like the person that's talking, he's like the antagonist of the next game, and like it does set it up well, because one of the things this game does do is that we do get a lot of flashbacks of Laura's dad, and just know that's going to lead to the next game, because the next game is full of flashbacks of like Laura's father. I will say that though. But overall, I do like the story and it's pretty interesting, but like a lot of the story you really do have to listen to like all the notes and all that to really understand what's happening. But that's really where most of the story, like when it comes to like Jacob and like learning about him, is really at. You have to listen to a lot of these audios and know like what exactly is happening, like when it comes to like how the source was here, and then also when it comes to like the Mongrels, and also when it comes to Trinity. You really have to listen to all that, that way you can really understand the story. One of the things I really do like about this game is when it comes to Laura, because Laura has a lot of growth, because we see that she does have the experience from the first game, but at the same time she still has trauma from the first game, seeing that there's really only one person that she's still in contact with from the first game, that being Jonah. But we see with her research and her father's research, she actually does want to become an archaeologist, and that's like the big push that she gets to actually want to go out and like discover what exactly the source was by actually looking at her father's research. So that's one of the reasons that kind of gets her out of the slump that she kind of was in because of the trauma she had from the first game. I really like the more personal experience they have us go through with Laura in this game, with seeing how her father impacted her, along with seeing like how her father's research led to his death. So like it's a more personal story because we learn more about Laura's background, and we also get to learn like how much impact her father really did have on her life. Even though her father died when she was at a very young age, we still get to see like how he did impact her. Now I want to talk about the DLC, because there is some different DLC that is added in this game. Now the first one I want to talk about is the Baba Yaga DLC. Now this is one that you can do in the main game, and that's mainly because like you find this one woman that's like locked up like in this locker, and like once you find her, she tells you that her grandfather like went to the valley and he got lost, and like once you go to that valley, you start going off some trippy drug type of hallucination type of stuff, and just know that takes you on a psychological trip where she's also going to see like her father and like see things of like her past, along with fighting like this big ass weird house thing and a whole bunch of this weird ass wolves. And just know eventually you're going to find out why exactly Laura is hallucinating. It's going to be all because like this certain flower that's there, and just know Laura's going to go back there because now that she has an antidote to like the flowers, that way she doesn't hallucinate, she's going to go there. But you know, sadly, of course, you know, like one of the antidotes she has is going to break, and that's when you get in a boss fight with the actual witch that's there. Boss fight that you have there kind of gets very repetitive, mainly because what you're doing the whole time, you're shooting this big ass pot that's floating, and like you have to shoot it, that way it gets pulled over, and like you pull this thing that it gets hit with fire, but you have to do it a lot of different times, along with like a whole bunch of enemies coming to attack you. So it's kind of a very tedious and annoying boss fight. Like after the first few times, I feel like that should have been it. It did not need to be as long as it was. Like I low-key feel like they should have eventually had the witch like fall out the pot, and then you have a boss fight where like the witch is on the ground. I feel like that would have been way more interesting than, of course, having to climb all these different levels and do the same thing over and over again, so it was very annoying. Just know at the very end of the DLC, you're gonna find Shorty's grandpa, and then you're gonna find her grandma too, because her grandma this whole time was like the witch, and like she was trapped here this whole time, and she's been there for a long ass time. So that's one of the things you are gonna learn. Now the next DLC we get is Blood Ties, which sees Laura in the Croft Manor, mainly because like her and her uncle are basically fighting over who's gonna control this manor. And like as you're in there, you're gonna basically just explore the manor, and you're gonna learn a lot of different things about like the Croft Manor and like Laura's father, like some of his research, and just learning things about him. So that's kind of what this serves as. To me, this kind of just reminds you of some of the older Tomb Raider games, how you could explore like Laura's house and all that. That's kind of what this kind of reminded me of. But in this one, you just have like a whole story that's wrapped around like the whole Croft Manor. And also this DLC essentially serves as just like the start of this game in a way, because I guess this does take place like right before like Jonah walks in on Laura. That's kind of where this DLC takes place at. Now there is another DLC. It's like the one where you have like the remnant that essentially turn into zombies or something like that, because they have some disease or something that's going on. It's not really, to me, it's not really that remarkable DLC. Yes, there is a new area you can go to, but at the same time, to me, it's not really nothing crazy. Now, one of the best things that this game has is endurance mode. Now, when it comes to endurance mode, you're basically replaying like all the levels that are in this game, but you can also do a lot of different things, because like you have a different perks that you can unlock, either good perks or bad perks, because like there's certain things that you can unlock in here where you can make it that the enemies' heads are super big, and like the point of this is to basically get through the mission super fast, and like it's a very fun thing to do. And also you can do this with a friend online. It's a very fun mode that you can spend hours in, because it's very fun and addicting, and it's a very fun thing to do. Now I want to talk about some of the enemies of this game, because there is way more variety in this game when it comes to enemies compared to the first game. Now the first enemy of course is Trinity, and Trinity is going to have a lot of different variety, because of course you're going to have people in different armor, you're going to have people holding shields, but the difference between them and the first game, like I said, is they're actually military trained. So that's one of the differences between them. So you're going to have Trinity of course, and of course you're going to have animals. You're going to have wolves, and like I said in the first game, it's on site when it comes to wolves, because Laura do not rock with wolves. So like of course the wolves had to come back. One of the other things that's introduced are bears, and I mean big ass bears that take so much ammo to take down. Bears in this game are OP. They're way too overpowered. It's insane. But yeah, you have bears that you can fight, and you have different caves that you encounter bears in, and every time you encounter them, it's like, oh shit, because you're gonna have to waste a lot of ammo because they eat up so much ammo. One of the other things that's introduced when it comes to animals is that there's snow leopards. And that shit is insane, because like I did not even know there's a snow leopard there until I looked up and it was just chilling. I said, oh shit, what is that running after me? So yes, there's snow leopards, and that's really cool and dope. And one of the other things is I think these are mountain lions or just lions or something, because like they don't look like snow leopards, but like they kind of look like lions. So they're also in this game, and they're another big cat that you can kill because they're trying to attack you. So they have more variety when it comes to the animals that of course want to attack you and kill you. And one of the last enemies of course is the deathless ones, but you know, you don't see those until the very end of the game. So this is a little bit more variety, but it's mainly variety when it comes to the animals. There's more animals that you can fight, that way you can kill them and get their pelts and all that. But at the same time, it is kind of scary when you see the bears, the snow leopards, the lions, because they are so goddamn big. You're just like, god damn, why are they so big? Especially the snow leopards. The snow leopards scared me when I first saw it, because I was not expecting it to be there, and I was like, oh shit, snow leopard. Because I mean, hey, I love snow leopards, but like that snow leopard was so goddamn big. It was really fun replaying this game for the first time in years, because while I was playing it, there were a lot of things I didn't remember about this game, especially when it came to the tombs or some of the hidden items. It made me go like, what was I doing when I originally played this? Because a lot of these I did not remember at all. I was like, I don't remember this tomb, I don't remember finding these items. But then I would look at my percentage thing, and it said like in my original playthrough of this, I did like 70% of the game. So I'm just like, I had to do something there, but at the same time it kind of felt like I didn't do much in that original play, where I was probably just trying to get through the story, and then I probably just did some extra things. That's what it kind of felt like to me while I was replaying this. There were also things that surprised me, like when Laura falls into that one area where all the Trinity men are being burned alive, and you just happen to come across one of the Trinity people that are still alive that's like very badly burned, like he is crispy burned, and like you can interact with him. And one of the things you can do is that you could actually kill him, and if you kill him, you get experience, which is crazy, but I mean, it makes sense because it is an enemy. But that was one of the things I was very surprised that you could actually do in this game, and I did not remember that at all. This game is really beautiful when you look at the scenery, the different areas in the game, and the tombs, because there's a lot of really cool areas in here. Like when you have like Laura jumping around like the whole planetary area, and that area looks very stunning when you actually sit there and just watch all the objects move as they rotate. So there's a lot of really cool areas in here, especially like at the beginning of the game when you go on the mountain snowing, that's one of the first things you notice, because you're just like, oh wow, this game is beautiful, and it's a big improvement from the first game. When the game just first opens up, that's one of the first things you notice. One of the things I like that this game added is when Laura's in certain outfits, she will show that she is cold and shivering, and I really like that. And I also like how the weather actually affects her appearance, because if you're outside when it's snowing for a while, you actually will get snow on you, just like how you would in real life. That's one of the things I actually like that they added, was just like some of the actual weather detail to the costumes, because you know, some games they could just, you'll be outside and it doesn't really affect you like that, but this one, that was one of the things I really liked what they did in this game. I know it's something small that, like, I mean, most games have, but I don't know, I just thought that I like that little attention to detail that they actually did, because sometimes Laura will actually be covered up in a lot of snow. But Rise of the Tomb Raider is a great game that improves everything that the first game introduced. It's not the perfect game, but as a sequel, it does what it needed to do. But if you enjoyed the video, why not like? If you're new, you could dislike, subscribe if you really enjoyed. But just know the next game more than likely is going to be a Resident Evil game. I'm not sure which one exactly. You'll probably see at the end of this video which one I decide I'm going to do when it comes to the next Resident Evil game. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next video though. Bye.